Global, ideas that can disrupt the global payments landscape. This session is powered by PayU. Our moderator for this one is going to be Ms. Megha Vishwanath, Assistant Editor and Anchor, CNBC TV 18. Morning, Megha. I trust you're doing well.
I absolutely am, as well as one can at this point.
Great. Our speakers for this one are going to be Mr. Mohit Gopal, Senior Vice President, Strategic Initiatives, PayU India. Morning, Mr. Mohit.
Hi, how are you?
Doing good, thank you. We have joining us Ms. Praveena Rai, COO, NPCI. Morning, ma'am. I hope you're doing well.
Hi, Megha. Doing well.
We have with us Mr. Nitish Asthana, President and COO, Pine Labs.
Morning. Good morning, everyone.
We have with us Ms. Sujata Mohan, Senior Director, Payments, APMEA, FIS Global. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
And it's all yours now.
Thank you, Muskan, for that introduction, and welcome everybody, not just the panelists, but those of you who have tuned in on a Monday morning and decided to kickstart your week with us. We thank you for joining in. And of course, you couldn't have thought of a better and more energetic sector to start with, which is the fintech sector. And as twisted as it sounds, the pandemic actually proved to be, quite the accelerator for the sector, not just for the traditional banking sector, but also for the newer players. And innovation in tech was at the forefront of everything that we saw around this time. In fact, if I can go ahead and say, the pandemic pretty much changed everything that we were used to in the pre-COVID times. It has changed the way we consume content. It has changed the way we shop for things. It has changed the way how we shop for things. And clearly, contactless payment has become more and more accessible. And there seems to be all the barriers and guards that users in general had, and all the prejudice that they had about contactless payments, that seems to have gone. Clearly, convenience was one of the top drivers, and the second was, of course, hygiene, because of the times that we are living in these days. If I can go ahead and share some very interesting numbers, and this is according to a KPMG report, the Indian fintech ecosystem alone roped in nearly $1.7 billion in funding in the first 6 months of 2020, which is doubling from last year's 726.6 million. And this is despite a global pandemic. So this is just an indicator of the fact that innovation was out there and enough funding was available and enough dry powder is available to back that. Of course, we have a set of absolute pros with us to decode the fact as to why we saw this beyond the obvious reasons, the growth and the acceleration, but also what can we now do with this innovation that we have built in-house, and how do we take it global? And that's pretty much what we are here to discuss on this Monday morning. Let me start with Praveena, as everyone's going to be turning their heads to NPCI for everything that happens in the ecosystem. Praveena, as I said, innovation is out there. Enough startups have been able to leverage that. We saw so many fintech startups turn unicorn this year. We saw UPI payments and transactions hit record highs. So talk to us about, what can be done now to take this global.
So I think, India is such a combination of problems to solve, and that puts us in a unique place where we have a diverse population, different regions, different behaviors, right from the the premium consumer, the premium urban consumer, all the way to somebody who's working off in a village. And we've seen digital payments being adopted across this entire spectrum. And this is a unique opportunity for us, because this has not happened through one entity. This has happened through the entire industry coming together, the banks coming together, fintech players coming together, business correspondents coming together to offer assisted models. And it's a unique opportunity to take this into markets where some of these problems may exist. So whoever is a player who's focused on, let's say the contactless solutions in India, will be well positioned to take those solutions overseas. So it's not going to be, let's kind of take everything that we have to every market opportunity, but a very targeted approach to take specific problems that have been solved to specific markets. And UPI is clearly a leading example of that. We've set up the NPCI International, so NIPL. The idea is to really evangelize the mobile payment standards through UPI. And it provides an opportunity to the entire ecosystem that's created the success in India to take the same solutions to every market global.
Okay, since you spoke of ecosystem, I think before I go to the other panelists, Mohit, let's talk about what you folks have been doing at PayU and what Praveena pointed out, that of course there is a lot that is being done, and now an entire ecosystem is being built to be able to push some of this innovation that we have built and homegrown innovation and take that global. So if you were to highlight some of the things that PayU has been able to do that probably was in India first, but you think is relevant for other markets as well, what would that be?
So quite a few things. I think when you think of PayU, it's slightly different because PayU is already a global company. So we're already present in about 50 markets. So the way we see it is that what can we do in India, which we can take easily enough to the rest of the world, right? And it's not just PayU. We also have a sister concern, Wibmo, which is taking their ACS and FRM solutions globally as well. So from that perspective, I think there's a natural fit in us taking what we do in India global. To take Praveena's statement a bit further, a bad analogy is that it's like an Indian doctor, right? The kind of stuff which they learn out here, when they go overseas, it's very easy for them. So I think in India, we see it pretty much, we see everything. It's not just co-payments, it's also when it comes to, say, credit, when it comes to open APIs, when it comes to neo-banking, when it comes, and for example, Nitesh could probably talk about Pine having this great brand called Quicksilver, which is in the gift card space. And that's got global applications as well. So I think I would almost think of India as this fintech laboratory where we've got enlightened regulators, we've got consumer tech players, which include not just the Googles and all of the world, but now WhatsApp is coming in as well. We've also got banks which are very, very switched on, and they are probably a lot, and this includes PSU banks. They're a lot more aware of what's happening in the ecosystem and which direction to we need to move. I think we've got some of the best bankers in the world. So I think I see this as a lab, and then we will take what we're doing here and take it global. So pretty much everything which we have has got applications abroad.
Mohit, if I can then ask you to be a little more specific, and of course, PayU is a global company, but what I was getting to was maybe if you can highlight with an example of some innovation or some product that you tried first in India, and now you think, or built for India, and now you think that can be taken global.
See, I think payments, because there are two aspects to payments. The first is that you have things like you have banks and you have schemes and you have regulators. So a lot of what we do, the standards tend to be largely global in many ways, right? How you use them, what you actually innovate is different. For example, as PayU, we had launched LazyPay a few years back that came out of the PayU Citrus merger, and it was a very interesting success when it came to buy now, pay later. Right now, we are working on even on the core payment side, what we're doing on tokenization. We recently launched with GPay. We were the first to launch tokenized card flow in India. And I think like this, there are 20 other things which are there as well. I could talk about Aadhaar-enabled payments, which I think is quite unique because this combination of identity and payments, and I think Praveena would be best placed to talk about that, is something which can be taken pretty much everywhere. So like this, there are 50 things which I'll monopolize the session. So I don't want to do that, but I think you get the gist of it. We are ahead of the Americas when it comes to payments. We are probably ahead of Europe with the exception of open banking. And what China does is brilliant, but it does not translate well to local markets across the world. Therefore, I feel that India will have this great ability to take payments everywhere.
Okay, you talked about monopolizing this conversation. I was watching Nitish's frame at that point as to how he reacted to that. So jump in, Pine Labs, with your pitch and talk to us about things that you have built in, as Mohit put, in the labs right here in India. And again, the same question to you, products that you think that were built for the local market but are applicable in the global market as well.
Look, Megha, I was not smiling because of the word monopolizing. There's no ulterior motive to take out of that particular word from Mohit, right? But look, at a macro level, I would say that, what Praveena mentioned on the UPI thing, it's really first about the potential of what it can do. See, the UPI methodology is 3-layered, right? So you got the account layer, which is the banks. Second is the network layer, which is connecting all the banks. But the third most interesting piece is the TPAP layer, right? Which is basically takes the apps out into the market. And if you look at that methodology and how it applies to the world, various economies at our stage of evolution. And from that perspective, whether you look at payments or you look at lending or you look at banking or you look at procurement, once you got that methodology and at place of aggregating data and aggregating providers and providing the app, you can create a low cost acceptance method which can spread its ecosystem into various use cases for merchants. So I think that methodology itself is very interesting. From a Pine Labs perspective, I really do want to talk about buy now, pay later, right? That's an area which we are really investing in. What is it? It's basically creating the ability to deliver credit at the point of transaction. All markets, including India, where, the number of credit cards is very low. India's got like 50 million cards or so. But then there are many more credit worthy customers out there. So what we did was that we built a network of over 35 lenders. These include banks, NBFCs, anybody who wants to underwrite customers based on information that they have or based on credit scores and all of that. And so we created a model where we work together with these lenders to underwrite over 100 million customers. So that's one layer of it, of that network. Second layer of that network is we have over 100 brands who actually want to sell to the 100 million customers that the banks have underwritten. But then the third key aspect of this, where's the point of transaction? So we put together almost 160,000 merchants. These are not the LFRs, but these are the small corner stores who are selling mobile phones and electronics and so on and so forth. So this three-party network of brands on the one side, lenders on the second side, and merchants on the third side, and 100 million pre-underwritten customers is actually very, very commendable, actually very compelling when you're looking at delivering point of transaction credit. It's a big benefit to the brands and the people who want to expand their business. Banks want to expand their credit beyond the credit card base. And obviously merchants want to expand their business and consumers want to have better affordability. So it's like a win-win for everyone. It's also digital, it's something which you don't have to get into any paperwork. So right from validating the customer to validating the product to validating the merchant, everything is done in a matter of seconds. This platform, if you think about its validity in other similar markets like Southeast Asia, Middle East, maybe even Africa and other places, I think there is a whole set of use cases where this can kind of complement the existing credit systems to deliver point of transaction credit. That's a very, very interesting theme for us at Pine Labs.
Right. And I like the fact that you actually pointed out the geographies where the innovation that we have built here in India can actually be used and applicable. Because when you say global, people instantly think of countries that may or may not need the kind of innovations that we've built, because we've built this for a very specific market. And the three pieces of the network that you mentioned, users, merchants, and of course the brands, and building that all together, there are very specific markets that need that. And at that point, let me bring in Sujata. And FIS interestingly did a very in-depth survey, which was the Pulse survey for Q3 2020. And I was actually looking at one thing that was the biggest highlight was the fact that 93% of the respondents stated that they would use mobile wallets and would prefer contactless payments even in post-COVID times. So Sujata, let me ask you, as someone who's been actually observing the entire ecosystem, not just in India, but across the world, and that's one thing that we ask, at all points. There are some trends that have emerged, but is this short term? Is this long term? What is your understanding of this market? What's here to stay? And what's going to wear off eventually?
So yeah, you're right. We actually just from a participation perspective, we are a little bit of a different player. We are a technology player and we do platforms, right? So we work closely with NPCI. We work with Pine Labs. We have some relationship with PayU. So we are one of those players who sits, right at the back, providing the plumbing for payments, so to say, right? And what I've noticed, some 2-3 key things which I have noticed is that I think on the back of the innovations that NPCI did, we are seeing a huge growth in terms of real-time payment hours, which is modeled very closely to UPI from central banks abroad. Okay, so that's a great validation, right? When somebody copies you, you know that you've done a great job, right? So as we see, we are seeing huge number of RFPs where we are seeing central banks and the governments coming and saying, we want to change the model, we want to bring in more RTP, we want to, so the change is here to stay, right? And more countries are joining the bandwagon and saying, let's modernize payments, because fact of the matter is that with the pandemic, the value of digital payments just shot up, right? So if you look at the entire landscape, you will see that if you just lay it out across the APAC region or the EMEA region, you will see that most countries were very high on cards and not necessarily on alternate payment methods. But now slowly you're seeing that people are saying, look, let me go towards alternate payment methods. Let me try prepaid. Let me try commercial cards. And and all of this is, emerging into huge opportunities, I think, for the Indian players to go abroad. And I mean, at least as far as India FIS is concerned, we are taking that effort. We are meeting up with fintechs. We are tying up with fintechs and saying, look, nobody can build everything. And I've held this even when I was in RBL, right? You can't build the whole stack. You will take 20 years to do all of it, right? And there is great value for people to partner and go together for in different places. So just as we speak, we closed a very tight partnership with Sciency, and we already see opportunities for them, in other countries. So what I'm saying is that there is an opportunity lying there, especially on QR code based payments and on request to pay subscription model payments. We're seeing a huge opportunity, and given that even the government is pushing it, right? So obviously banks will have to align, they will have to go ahead and so on. There are nuances, there are little changes. So I saw in the UAE, they're saying, fine, I want to do requests for payments like UPI, but I want to do it on ISO 20022. So somewhere there is modernization over and above, but the concept is going from the India Innovation Lab, right? And I'm saying that if you go and see the size of those markets, they are phenomenal, right? So if you look at the APAC region, it's like a $880 billion business, right, sitting there. And I think EMEA and APAC is absolutely growing. And
okay.
So that's the opportunity size there.
All right. Sujata, thank you for laying it out there. And I think one thing that you spoke of, and I'm really intrigued, and I would love to get Mohit and Nitish, both of their takes on this. I know, Mohit, of course, PayU is a global company, but we've been talking about taking Indian innovation to a global market. Let me ask you, how much of a milestone is that for you to be able to take it global? So if I were to, I know they're probably not absolute opposites, but if I were to ask you, take it pan-India to every rural sector, take an innovation and make sure that it reaches every home in India, versus focus on a few, tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India, but also be able to take it global. So if that is an option, what is a bigger milestone for you? Mohit, let's start with you.
Sure, I think the answer internally would be both. Because see, remember, PayU is a B2B company at the heart of it, right? So when we want to get into any part of the market, we rely on our merchant partners to address that market. And we are there, much like Sujata said, we are also in that plumbing chain, right? Somewhere, we are also supporting our merchants. So and we can already see that all our merchants are going to rural India. They are expanding very aggressively in smaller towns and cities, and a large percentage, when you look at IP-based hits, you see a larger percentage of transactions are coming in from places where earlier, like 5 years or 10 years back, they weren't happening, right? So that's on the India side. When it comes to going global, I think it's also a validation of what we have built here. We have, as PayU also, we would have multiple tech stacks everywhere, but I would love it if PayU India's tech stack, which I believe is the most scalable and stable, a bit of a push there, but we're trying to take this everywhere, because I generally feel then you create a system wherein with one tech stack, you can address multiple markets, which is a lot more efficient, and it is also commercially viable, right? It makes sense.
Absolutely. So no, it's not a push right there. We've been noticing that you make excellent pitches for your product. Nitish, I want to get your take on this one, being able to take it to every part within India and scale here, or take it global, which is a bigger milestone?
There's so much to do in India. I mean, when you if you take the merchant side first, right? The merchants in India, when you talk about MSME, there's like a whole host of 10 different layers before you actually get to store merchants. And each of these have different ways of delivering to. So what I would like to say that increasingly we are spreading beyond tier 3, right? And therefore having that India technology stack working for merchants of different kinds is a very, very important theme for us. When you look at going global, the cost of entering a market in terms of compliance is always fixed. So you have to consider that certain amount of investment is required to go into these markets. But when you look at replicability of models and platforms, I think there are markets like, you have Vietnam, you have Philippines, you have Thailand, you have Malaysia. These are similar markets which have similar dynamics from a merchant point of view. And the scale of services that we offer and the technology that we offer is very relevant there, right? So I think it's like a very balanced strategy on how to balance the opportunity in India. Clearly the India opportunity is immense, and we've just scratched the surface. We all know that, right? But increasingly diversifying into other markets is obviously going to be important. But are we going to go into 10 markets? I'm not entirely sure, but it's going to be very selective.
All right. Then at this point, Ravina, let me bring you in. And of course, the latest that came from NPCI was that you've added 19 new shareholders. And for the first time, these shareholders included fintech companies and payment system operators. Let me ask you about the timing of this. What made NPCI decide that it's time to bring the new age players and broad base your shareholdership?
It's a natural course of life cycle of the organization. I think the organization started off by being a bank-led organization, but it was always a community organization, right? It works with the community for the community, and the community clearly has expanded, and the players who matter are, as importantly, the payment providers in the fintech space, as well as the bank. So I think it was a very natural progress to this point, and this is not something that happened overnight, right? So it's been in the offing for a while now, and we're very happy to have all our new stakeholders on board.
Right, and as
I
Mohit said,
want to add something to the
Yes, go
conversation
ahead.
that you just
Yes,
had.
go ahead.
Very interesting there about do you go deeper in India or go global? And if you look at our number of sectors, there have been a few sectors where large Indian organizations, successful Indian organizations, right, not necessarily large, have been successful in a multinational framework. And I think India is so complex with so much of opportunity that our great organizations get fairly caught up in the growth that India can offer, and the problem solving and the strategizing and everything that's needed to make the organization successful here. I think this is a unique point in time where startups, of course, I wouldn't call PayU or Pine Labs and FIS startups anymore, but let's say they are still new generation organizations. I think it's a great opportunity for organizations in this space, in the fintech space for sure. Once they have established a certain foothold and success, so with one foot deeply entrenched in the Indian context and deepening their wings here, to have the aspiration to go overseas, because this is our unique point in time to build the multinationals, to build Indian multinationals. And what better way to do it than tech? Tech is our competency, has been for the last 2 decades. We are moving from services tech to product tech, and it's a golden moment now. So I think we should certainly go for it.
Okay, but this golden moment needs a little more push. And I think one point that Nitish brought out when he was talking about going global was the fact that the cost that it takes to enter a new market. So then at that point, let me ask you, what would players like NPCI be able to do to kind of, give that extra push to kind of make it a little more balanced and standardized and create a level playing field of sorts for new age companies like PayU and Pine Labs, and as well as much smaller startups to be able to even dream of the idea of going global?
No, that's a great question, because he referenced the cost of compliance when you enter a country. So whatever you do, the cost of compliance, to understand the legal framework, to understand the regulatory framework, you cannot escape that, right? No matter what, whichever industry you're in, every organization needs to understand that. However, Where I think we play a very important role is in the standardization of the tech stack. So if you look at UPI, or if you look at RuPay, or any of the products that we run, of course, Aadhaar is not very relevant outside India, but you can take an equivalent identity management kind of an approach. The specification standards become the most important. So as long as the specs are standardized, it's a level playing field for everybody. The operating model is standardized, the spec is standardized, and hence the tech stack. Nitesh spoke about the tech stack. So the tech stack that is built in India can then be replicable in the equivalent market, wherever one needs to operate thereafter. So one is, if NPCI is able to move into another market with our products, then I think it opens up to everyone who is part of the ecosystem in India. But even otherwise, I think players have already expanded their wings. You heard about it, 40, 50 countries. And it cuts across the spectrum. You could look at ASEAN, you could look at Eastern Europe. There are large swaths of the globe, that are where the payment infrastructure is still not very sophisticated. So the when the gap is high, and the interoperability does not exist today, that's where the biggest opportunities lie. But at the same time, even in developed markets,
Yeah.
which tend to have a historically high digitization using cards, they are now exploring other mechanisms, because we've gone forward on a mobile first kind of an approach, right? UPI is a mobile first design. And when that shift happens, then other opportunities open up. So I think in every market, there's something that can be done. The sweet spot has to be found and focused on. That's the key.
Right. Nitish, quickly want to get your opinion on this. Apart from costs, of course, which we have addressed right now, what else would be your ask if given a choice for you to be able to expand to the global market? What kind of assistance or support would you need from government agencies or from government and probably your investors as well?
Yeah, look, I think that, beyond compliance, Praveena did mention standardization, right? So it's not easy to achieve standardization. When you look at UPI, interoperable, mobile first, a 3-layered system, is going to take years to build it, right? So I think someone like a NPCI can, probably lead the way in dealing with governments and regulators in those countries. So that's number one. I think the second thing we need to consider is collaboration, right? Like Sujata mentioned, you can't really build everything. So when we are looking at going global, we are really looking at collaborators. These could be banks, these could be large merchants. Mohit mentioned about our Quicksilver platform. What we are seeing clearly is that prepaid as a wallet use case was there a few years ago and obviously continues at a much lower rate. But when it comes to prepaid use cases across gift and credit shells and disbursements and all these things, there are various different types of use cases that are coming out, right? So when we look at those markets, we are looking at airline companies, we're looking at large retailers, we're looking at online players, all wanting to use prepaid in a very, very different use case.
Okay.
And the fourth one I would mention is we should not undermine security, right? So in 2012, what India did in terms of second factor was authentication is really the bedrock of innovation, right? We won't be here if we didn't have second factor of authentication. So when it comes to setting standards, you got to look at ISO 20022, but also look at how the balance between offline and online fraud is controlled with the right security measures.
Right. Before we are able to close this discussion, I have to address, and without addressing the sunrise sector right now in the financial space, which is the neobanks, I don't think this conversation would be complete. So Sujata, let me bring you in at this point. Of course, financial inclusion is something which is an absolute must in a region like India. But since we are talking about some of the Indian innovations going global, the kind of neobanks that we are seeing emerging, which is of course going to be a catalyst for the existing banking system, do you see that being applicable? And we've spoken about interoperability, we've spoken about the tech stack, being able to fit that in other markets as well. Do you think that the Indian neobanks could have global aspirations and could go global as well?
Absolutely. Look, the only issue that comes in the way, as Nitish said, is the cost of compliance and this is where I again bring to fore the fact that collaborations is the key, right? Now a neobank with a platform player who is actually existing globally can very easily set up whatever is required in any part of the world, right? The plumbing layers at the bottom actually does most of the compliance, for most countries. So predominantly, I do believe that it is, in fact, we do intend to take some of the neo players to other countries because we know the compliance layers of many countries, right? We are existing in 30 countries. We know what needs to be done in which country and so on. So it's very easy for us to connect a neo bank to another existing bank of FIS, for instance, right? So this is exactly what I'm saying. Cost of compliance is an issue for sure, but there are opportunities merely by collaboration to be able to move faster into the global market. And again, I would just going back to the point on tier 2 and global markets. I do believe that it's very easy. It is important for a local domestic player where payment margins are marginalized to be able to go to other markets and make their balance in terms of margin play as well, because I see that as an opportunity for many fintech players here.
Okay. Before I wrap up this conversation, I would like to open a question and ask all of you, since you all are from the fintech space, and I don't want to put anyone in a spot. And in fact, this is one of the audience questions as well, but I think I'm going to broad base that a little. We are talking about finance. We are talking about taking an idea global. We are talking about tech. And what better technology to be able to do that than a decentralized one? And I'm talking about cryptocurrencies. So why does at present India have that fear of crypto at this point, and why as an ecosystem we're not being able to accept it in a way that Indian players can operate in, and we are able to probably integrate that with some of the existing solutions as well, because we are again talking about being able to take a local idea and make it global. And what better scenario to be able to do that than in a decentralized one? So what's holding us back, and at some point will we be able to see an amalgamation of all these technologies in the current ecosystem at some point? Who would like to take that one?
Okay, I'll go with that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was going to say that I think when it comes to any kind of payment option, we are dealing with money, we are dealing with people's businesses, and so we have to deal with confidence, right? So it's taken us kind of years to build that confidence. And if India is like a 400 billion, if I'm not wrong, 400 billion payments system, we're going to take it to 1 trillion plus in the next 3-5 years, right?
Yeah.
I think that confidence is absolutely key. So instead of plunging into things, I would think that we should, as a set of from a set of regulations as well as participants, we should be open, but we should always look at measured introduction, measured building of confidence, which will lead to adoption. That's what it's not a technical answer, but when you go down to the basics, it's absolutely about confidence.
It holds the sentiment. We need to take a measured approach. That's the word coming in from Nitish. Sujata, sorry, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, in my opinion, crypto, I do believe, as Nitish said, to bring in confidence. But above everything else, I feel that there are other problems to be solved with distributed ledger, especially in terms of the multi-country clearing. Things like, you don't necessarily need to launch a currency. Prepaid works pretty much. Many people are using prepaid wallet as the base for storing crypto, right? So instead of focusing on the currency aspect, I would imagine that the trade flows and the supply chain flows, if it were to go into the distributed ledger, automatically the digitization will automatically happen. This has been my view for quite some time.
Okay, I could just see Praveena nodding through when we were talking about what's already there and the fact that we need to take a measured approach. So I'm assuming that she is backing this answer. Praveena, would you like to add something here?
No, absolutely. I think, it needs to solve a problem, right? It needs to solve a problem, and it needs to prove itself wherever crypto is being used in the formal environment. Globally, it is still in kind of the test stage. There's a pilot, or there's a big pilot, or there's a use case going on. Cross-border trade flows using blockchain, I think all of that is getting pretty standard, like Sujata mentioned, the distributed ledger technology. Yeah. So technology-wise, I think we are sort of globally getting more comfort as these use cases are getting into real transaction flows. Now, coming back to crypto and does crypto solve a problem? What problem does it solve? and hence the, what's the right deployment. I think all those questions will need to be answered before we
In time.
we really need to move in and start a test or a deployment.
All right. Who knows? 5 years down the line, we might be sitting at another panel discussion where I would be saying NPCI has added new shareholders, and this time these are like crypto companies. But before I wrap, Mohit, your thoughts on, of course, everything that we've been able to discuss. We've spoken about challenges. We've spoken about what it takes to be able to take an Indian idea and make it global. What's relevant? What are some of the roadblocks? But what does this say next 1 year look for, not just for PayU, but what is your assessment? And this is a crystal ball question for the entire fintech sector, say 1 year down the line.
No, it's going to be super interesting because I feel that post-COVID, and we can't avoid talking about COVID, I think the mentality has changed among merchants, consumers, as well as among bankers and regulators. Everybody's saying, let's see how we can digitize this faster. So I think where earlier we had to knock on people's doors and pretty much try to get them to talk to us, now those conversations are naturally happening. So I think that cultural shift has already happened. So that's what I think is going to happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Mohit, Nitish, Sujata, and Praveena for joining us here and talking about what it would take to make some of the Indian ideas and take it global. And of course, fintech is a sector that's been extremely interesting throughout this lockdown. And once again, technology, believe it or not, is saving the day. And I think that's going to be the mantra or the formula for a long time to come. And this is not short-lived. This is a long-term trend that we will be observing. And here's hoping that a lot of Indian innovation sees global users and is able to solve problems for the entire world. With that, I would like to wrap up this conversation. Thanks a lot, Muskan, over to you.
Thank you so much. This was such an intriguing session. Thanking all our speakers. Thank you so very much for being here this morning.